Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Ammar Elm, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by Tom Snyder, founder and managing partner of Funnel Clarity, a sales, consulting, and training firm rooted in the science of human performance and buyer behavior. With a career spanning top roles at Huthwaite, Tom designed Funnel Clarity to transform sales organizations through value-based methodology and ongoing sales enablement. His books, Escaping the Price-Driven Sale and Selling in a New Market Space, are McGraw-Hill bestsellers, and he's credited with delivering measurable improvements to quotas, deal size, and sales culture. Tom, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you. Thank you, Ammar. Good to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
I'm excited to have you. I always like to start from the beginning. So, can you take us back to before you started Funnel Clarity? What were you doing at that time? And then what was really the motivation behind starting the company?
Yeah, so I'll give you the brief version. I got out of graduate school as a math and computer science major many years ago and got a job on the White House staff, worked for several different presidents for 11 years. And I always share the fact that my first day on the job was miserable, and every day after that got worse. Every time I got a promotion, I became more disheartened, and I finally left. Became a serial entrepreneur, started and sold several companies. And each time I went through one of those oscillations, I became fascinated by a question of why are business to business sales more difficult than they seem like they should be. Decided to take a year off and search for scientists, the real thing, who had studied the topic. That was a little disheartening at first because it seems like a lot of people write books who have nothing to say that's scientific. I
Mm,
found one of these folks, the real thing, lived a few miles from me, called him to have coffee. After 6 of those coffees, I agreed to go for 90 days. I stayed almost 11 years and became CEO there. Left in 2008 and formed Funnel Clarity because I had fallen in love with the application of science to the process of sales and the unbelievable difference it can make when sellers, the people who lead them, the people who manage them, really understand how to apply this science. And frankly, it became not just my vocation, but my passion and my avocation.
I love that. I love that. Was it difficult to step into the world of entrepreneurship and business ownership or not? Because it sounds like you were already disheartened with that world in a sense of just working for somebody, corporate world, all that good stuff.
Yeah, after I left politics, I was an entrepreneur, and as I said, started and sold several companies. And what
Yeah.
one of the other things that struck me is how little a formal education prepares you for the challenges of
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur. And I think it would be safe to say if I didn't make every mistake you could make, I certainly made the majority of them. But I love the effort. I love the organizing of it. And you can't be an entrepreneur without a passion.
Yeah.
So when I went back to the corporate world, or I guess for the first time at Huthwaite, I fell in love with the science. I didn't like the politics
Mm,
of that world. But I did find out something. I think that one of the most important things for new entrepreneurs is to understand there's nothing more successful than having customers before you start.
okay. How did you make that happen?
The one that matters is the Funnel Clarity story. I had been in the business of commercializing these fabulous best practices that science had derived. And I knew a lot of people. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to compete with my former company, but my goodness, Ammar, doesn't the whole world want to know how to sell better?
Yeah.
The real headwind is that we work in an industry with no barrier to entry. So everybody's heard this story from too many people who can't make it happen. But it's been just absolutely wonderful, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I'd love to give the listeners a little bit more clarity on Funnel Clarity itself, your company, And specifically, who's your ICP? Who do you love to work with? It sounds like it's organizations that do some sort of B2B sales, but I'd love for you to elaborate on that. And then from there, let's get into the offers and services that you provide and the science-backed approach that you take to B2B sales.
Okay, I'm going to start at the end of your question and work backwards, if that's okay. So our ICP really is not industry specific. It's specific to a set of challenges that businesses have. All of our clients are B2B customers. They cover a wide breadth of industries, anything from oil well supply equipment and major billion-dollar auto parts manufacturers to banking. We have a very big presence in SaaS companies, the financial industry, insurance, a number of different places. But it's really about those challenges. Our sales funnel has too many deals that stall. My sellers only sell at the end of the quarter by discounts. My people work very hard, but I don't feel like their activities are producing enough outcome. Think that kind of an expression. So if you think about that, Ammar, you realize that those aren't unique to an industry. They're common across a number of industries.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, our flow of new customers tends to follow a very interesting curve. When any particular industry is riding high and there's a slight downturn, they'll call us. A lot of people, but among those calls, hopefully, is to us.
Yeah.
At the bottom of a trough and things have begun to improve, they'll call us.
Got it.
So if you think about those oscillations across many industries, they're not all simultaneous.
Yep.
Our majority of customer type will vary, not week to week or month to month, but over cycle times of 2 or 3 years. Most of our customers have been with us since they started. So we have customers we've had for 15, 16 years. We have customers we've had for 12 and 15 with lots of different services. So I think one of the things that's helped us a lot is being true to who you are. One of the dangers when you're starting a company is the seduction of seeing all the things you could do, and not staying true to the things you should do. I think part of our success was I learned that lesson in my other successful ventures, but it was a bigger slog than it was at Funnel Clarity.
Having customers stay with you for 15, 16 years, that's huge. I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this would love to be able to have that kind of client retention. But also, a lot of them, I feel like, don't know what to offer their customers and how they can help them ongoing support for that long of a period of time. So can you speak a little bit more about that in terms of what does that actually look like? In terms of if you're working for somebody for that long, what are you helping them with? Why do they keep continuing to bring you back? Walk me through that.
I think that there are 3 main drivers of why we get so much of this business going on for so long. One, sales forces of any size, and I mean from 5 sellers to 1,000 sellers, don't have the capacity to coach their people these best practices. Remember, selling is a skill and a process. And in order to keep your skills sharp, you have to have coaching.
Yeah.
And, how many people in the world that are recognized for excellence don't have a coach?
Yeah.
You think about it. LeBron James, the greatest musicians, they all have coaches because the skills will deteriorate without it. And so one of the reasons that stay with us is because in many cases, they'll outsource that function to us. Second of all, we build for select clients. There are certain circumstances it wouldn't be appropriate, what we call academies, and they are a marriage of 24/7, always accessible content built in a academy framework where there is training content, reinforcement resources, assessments and measures, coaching resources, a number of different things, often integrated into the CRM or the learning management system. People can access this all the time, and that's supplemented by our doing live virtual webinars, coaching, commentary, review, deal coaching, things like that. The third
Okay.
reason I think is because I say this with humility, not hubris. I hope it doesn't sound that way. I realized early on in reviewing what made me successful and what made me frustrated in my previous entrepreneurial efforts is that building a company culture is
Mm,
absolutely essential. You need to do that intentionally.
yeah.
You can't just allow it to happen. And I think our company culture we nurture and cultivate every day. So you really, no matter who you interact with at our company, you you know who we are.
Yeah. Is your company in office or is it remote?
We have an office in Bethesda, Maryland, which is a bedroom community inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
A lot of our people work remote. We use
Got it.
the office to come together for different things. But we deliver this training mostly remote these days, but we
Yeah.
also do it on site anywhere in the world.
The reason that I ask though is because company culture is key for sure. Remote presents some challenges when it comes to building the company culture. So I'm curious your perspective on, because I've taught a lot of the people that we speak to have 100% remote businesses. So how do you go about building that internal culture if you're 100 or not, maybe not just 100% remote, but have that hybrid element?
Man, that is a great question. I'll try to make it short. There's a longer answer, but it starts with how you hire people.
Mm,
And in my early career, I probably hired more than 400 people, and I was always getting it wrong. And I don't mean they were bad people.
mm,
Fit just wasn't right. And so I created on reflection a system where the first thing I try to evaluate with anybody that's going to work with us is what is your value system? Now, I don't mean by that, are you deeply religious or will you not steal or anything like that? That's immaterial.
yeah.
It's where does a career fit in the flow of your life?
Mm,
And if that lines up with our culture, then I have you interviewed with a number of the people you will associate with. And our whole judgment there is, does it seem like we would enjoy working with this person?
yeah.
And then we evaluate the resume, talents, and skills they bring. So it starts there. And when you get to funnel clarity, you are embraced with culture first. We teach you product, market, policies second. I'll give you an example of what I mean. We have an unlimited amount of vacation. You can take as much vacation as you want. That comes with the expectation that you're doing a terrific job,
Yep.
but we don't keep track of that. If you don't, if you're not careful of understanding where work fits in with a person's life expectations, they can feel they can either take too much advantage of it or they can never take a vacation. And I have people I've got to say, look, go somewhere. You've been working for 8 straight months. This is ridiculous.
For sure. I love the question you posed there where it says, where does a career fit in the flow of your life? And does that align with that
Mhm.
individual's, with that company's culture and where that person wants to go? Because I think a lot of people try to fit a square peg into a round hole, and it doesn't always work when it comes to hiring the right people.
Yeah.
So I appreciate.
And here's the thing from the entrepreneur's perspective. Excuse me. Some people legitimately want to climb a corporate ladder, and God love them. And I think that's terrific. That tends, if you're not careful, to lead to burnout and an unpleasant personal life and things like that.
Yeah.
That's not here. And for entrepreneurs, there's this sort of unwritten rule that if you're not working 100 hours a week, you're not really doing the job. I would argue if you're working 100 hours a week, you are definitely not doing the job because you need balance. But it can't also be that I'm going to be an entrepreneur just because I want to be my own boss.
Yeah.
Everybody's your boss when you're the entrepreneur.
Yeah. I love that. I'd love to
Did I
shift.
give you enough answer there?
No,
I
that was great. That was perfect. I appreciate that. I think there's some golden nuggets in there that people can practically take away.
hope
Uh,
so. Hope.
I'd love to shift into the back end of the business. Actually, before we do that, let's say I'm listening to this and I'm interested in approaching funnel clarity. What does a typical client engagement look like? Like how long are we working together, I guess, initially, and
Yeah, I got it.
what does that look like?
I got the question. And by the way, you're good at this. You're doing a good job, brother. Okay. The initial phase of when you contact us is a combination of diagnostic on our part and informative on your part. So we want to tell you who we are, but the more important question is, what is the challenge you want to fix? The problem is if somebody calls and say, we need sales training, the worst thing we could do is say, great, we provide sales training. You got to get under it. No one goes to their doctor and says, I need tetracycline and a shot of B12. They go to their doctor with a set of symptoms, and the doctor gets paid to first do what? Figure out how to make you healthier. The second phase of that, and that generally takes about 3 or 4 conversations with leadership. And leadership is often more than one person unless it's the founder. Then we customize from the libraries we have content that will address that issue to produce the quickest level of improvement in the shortest amount of time with the greatest measurable outcome. Then we deliver that, and then we enter the most important phase. And Ammar, I will tell all your listeners, this is the critical phase. I don't care how great the content is. I don't care how terrific the instruction is, the materials are, whatever. You absolutely have to have a client who will embrace reinforcement and coaching. No one takes a single piano lesson and becomes a pianist.
Yeah.
No one takes a single golf lesson and becomes a golfer. You can go to the training, and if you don't do something to follow it up with a long tail, you're going to be disappointed in the return you get. Now,
Yeah.
whether you outsource that to us or we counsel you how to build it as an internal function, that's the phase. And then what can happen is you solve one problem and you suddenly realize there's another challenge. And one of the reasons people stay with us for so long, I mention, is because we may build them an academy over the course of time. We may do it incrementally, challenge by challenge, and or they may outsource the coaching and reinforcement to us.
Got it. Thank you for breaking that down. Let's shift into the back end of the business. When it comes to acquiring customers and your lead generation process, what does that look like?
It is 100% a marketing function. I liken our business to, if you think in your personal life of buying a new home. It's impossible for a real estate agent to place an unexpected call to you. Some people call those cold calls to you and say, hey, Ammar, I've got this really great house in your neighborhood and it's for sale. Would you like to buy it? Or the opposite, how about you sell your house and let me list it? It doesn't happen. When the need arises, you find yourself an agent. So the traditional way of prospecting doesn't really work in our business because the leader, somebody has to recognize we're just not doing well enough. So it's 100% marketing. Now that covers a wide swath. We have a YouTube channel I would love everybody to join. We do posts on LinkedIn. I'm a contributing writer to a number of different publications. My books get some people. We have a very dynamic and active website, which we're completely redoing at the moment. We keep a real careful track of our core web vitals and some of the technical parts of it. So it's everything that you can think of under this rubric of marketing.
Do you do any sort of paid advertisements or outbound outreach in some capacity? What have you found to be the most effective form of generating leads?
Again, I'm talking just about our business. We do a lot of, we spend a fair amount of money on paid ads on Google. We are among the millions of firms that are adjusting to the major algorithm change that Google just implemented on March 1st. So we do a lot of analysis about how to make the ads seductive and provocative. We don't have a business where traditional outbound BDR, SDR kind of work would really be effective.
What makes you say that?
Like I said, people don't, if I had a SaaS offering and I was offering, let's say, cloud-based accounting software, just for the sake of argument. Everybody that has a business uses accounting software.
Yeah.
If I was in the insurance business, every business on earth needs insurance. But there's only on any given day so many businesses where leadership is recognizing something in our sales process needs to improve. So using BDR, SDR outreach really wouldn't work. Really is about the marketing effort of allowing people to find us when they get there. Now, we do a lot of things. We do a lot of promotional things. I do a lot of speaking engagements. We do a lot of video. We do a lot of things to put our brand promise out there. But it isn't the kind of thing that we could really use outbound prospecting to fill.
Fair enough. Yeah, it sounds like you would need somebody who's already problem aware, where they already know that something needs to be fixed, and therefore they're raising their hand and they're reaching out to a company that will help them out with that. One thing that we talk about a lot in this podcast is the idea of building predictable lead generation machines, where it's like a faucet where you can turn it on, turn it off, and get leads as at will in a sense. Obviously, the digital marketing landscape is forever evolving, so it's easier said than done. But I guess for you, do you experience inconsistencies when it comes to lead flow? And I guess how do you approach building predictable lead generation in your business?
Again, I'll try to give you the short version. We put more effort into marketing than anything else except delivering results to clients. Everything revolves around it. One, we are constantly looking at on a daily basis analytics to understand not only what problems are people searching on the traditional SEO things, but really time of day of the week, which are more intensely oriented to people searching for the kinds of problems we solve.
Got it.
Do a lot of things about looking through enormous sources of information about what can we see in the public record or the available record on any given day that indicates particular companies might most want us, not who do we most want to do business with. And so that's looking for changes, looking for someone or a range of people at a particular organization that may have something they want to fix, accomplish, or avoid. We make theories on that, and then we'll do some email marketing to them, invite them to a webinar, whatever.
Cool. I noticed you haven't mentioned meta ads. Is there a reason why you haven't explored that?
No, we do. It's just I wanted to be conscious of your time.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. When you think of your vision and where you want to take the company over the next 12 months, are there any specific revenue targets, any performance targets? Paint me that picture.
Yeah, so our plan over the next 12 months, and let's call that from June 1st through next to May 30th, okay, is to grow the business about 120%. We don't always have that goal. There are times when our growth ambition is, let's say, 20%. What's the difference? How intensely we're working with the clients we have.
Got it.
We don't take a client if we can't give you everything you deserve. When the current political climate has created real concerns with every organization I encounter around spending money. Even if I can show an enormous return predictably, people just don't know what's going to happen between grants drying up, tariffs, the turmoil in the economy. So for us, our growth plans are taking advantage of that. And we believe that change is the engine of opportunity. And there is a time of change or a time of frustration or whether it's a recession, God help us, a war, a particular industry that suffered, new regulatory requirements. Those are the kinds of things we look for. So it's a combination of, you happen to ask at a time when some of our clients have had to downsize our engagement because they were in an industry that heavily depended on imported goods, or heavily depended on government grants for education or government grants for research.
Yeah.
We have opportunity.
Yeah.
fill that with new clients.
Yeah. I love what you said there. Change is the engine of opportunity. I think that's a mental frame that people should adopt, because a lot of people tend to look at what's going on and they tend to be fearful of it instead of seeing the opportunity that lies in between. I'm super curious, aside from the macroeconomic climate, what do you feel are the biggest challenges you're facing right now?
Yeah. Again, you're asking such profoundly great questions, and I don't want to be either platitudinal, nor do I want to be long-winded. In order for your listeners to take advantage of the answer, I would say this. Number one, there are always challenges with adapting to your current clients' changing corporate drivers or corporate whatever. They're always, you have to constantly be monitored, because the client you have today, that same client's going to be different next year. So if change is the engine of opportunity, if you don't stay in pace with that or even lead that, that change will allow you to lose the business. The other one is, I would say, we're always looking at what is the latest innovation so we can stay at the cutting edge. Now, everybody and their brother is talking about AI. We spend enormous amounts of time and money on looking at it. And I think in terms of the sales function, it's a very embryonic thing at the moment. And so we're trying to figure out how to help our clients adapt to that without getting caught up in the world of hallucinations and difficulty.
Fair enough. If you could talk to new entrepreneurs and give them a piece of advice that you wish you knew when you were first starting out, what would that be?
Oh, sorry. If you don't see that. I guess I'd say two things. First of all, be prepared as a new entrepreneur, be prepared that the company you think you're starting is going to be very different 3 years from now than the company in your mind. Be prepared to flex and don't get overly obsessed with, this is a great product, this is a great service, everyone is going to buy it. They're not going to beat a pat to your door. Yeah. But you'll discover things if you're listening for them that will create the opportunities you want to pursue. The other one is that for a new entrepreneur, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. You have a hobby, and that hobby can be very expensive. So actually start it in your garage.
Yeah.
Don't pay a lot of money for things that aren't going to immediately give you customers. So the most important thing is getting a toehold of revenue, because otherwise you can spend a ton of money, have a great product or service. America's business landscape is larded with things that were terrific, created by very smart and capable people that failed because they failed to recognize the immediacy of finding customers.
Yeah. Tom, I wish we had more time together.
Me too. It's fun.
I'll have to have you back on for a part two if you're open to it.
Anytime, Ammar. You ring the bell, I'll be there. All right.
I appreciate that. So that wraps up another insightful episode of Founders Future. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're a business owner and you're looking to scale your business and really enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, keep on climbing.